happy this engine's been honed, and we've cleaned everything up. We can rotate it over. That's just some of the oil. I keep on putting some WD-40 on the bores to make sure nothing gets corroded. We're ready to install the main bearings, or crank bearings, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide each of the 5 lower shells on, and also at the same time what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the oil squirters, because it's best to have them in before you try and put the crank on, because they're very difficult to get to when the crank's in, and also obviously I'm probably going to forget, so best to put them on. I'll do that first. Right, here's what helps to label everything up. Again, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to put in the squirters into the same holes. So here we have them. It's basically going to pop. This is the PCJ, or piston cooling jet. Basically, it just fires oil at the bottom of the piston and keeps it cool. And this is the little bolt that you have. There, hole in the end, and that has a little peg in the bottom, and that just locates. And what I'll do is I'll screw 3 of them in, and then I'll show you what it looks like in detail on the last one. So here we have the PCJ and the little bolt that goes through it. And then what we're going to want to do is place the PCJ down here. Okay, and it will kind of stay in position. You see it's not lined up properly yet, but you can use the bolt to do that. And then just be very careful here. It's a very fine thread. You don't want to cross thread it. So that's why you're not using any impacts or, you know, ratchets or whatever. You're just trying to make sure that the whole thing just threads in really nicely, and that's seated there. And just do the same to the others, then nip it up with a 10mm single hex. Okay guys, I'm going legit. It's a 16 Newton meter torque spec. Right, so these are the little bearings I'm going to use. These are the mains. These are the conrod big end shells, and these are the thrust washers. So I'll just show you all of those. Those are the parts, and this is all the standard stuff, standard sizes, and these are ACLs. Now, if this was really going to be legit, I'd use the Honda shells, and they have better increments and stuff. But this is what I'm going to do. This is the lockdown engine build, and consequently this is what's going to happen. Okay, so the first thing I've done is gone through and just wiped all of the areas where the bearings are going to be sitting. So as you can see, I've started popping these bearings in. I'm just going to do that by placing it on top here, just pressing down, making sure that hangs in the right place, and I'll just repeat for the last 2. There we have it, there's all the shells in there. Now it's time to go and grab the crank. So now it's time for some Plastigage. This is the packet comes in. This is the little strip that tells you the kind of sizings that are going on. This is the Plastigage itself. Okay, and this is the very old school documentation that comes with it. So this is actually from, if you just want to pause it there, whatever. I'm not gonna claim to know loads about this, just whatever else I've watched or been told by other people who know more than me. So again, this is more of a kind of, this is how I did it. I'm not claiming to be an expert on Plastigage use, but let's just see if I can actually do it. So the idea is So all these thin little strands, okay? So you'll get a set of this. I think there's probably like 10 strands in it. And what you want to do is just pick out one of the strands. Okay. There we go, there's one. Get rid of them. I'll just have that one. And then what I'm going to do is ensure there's no grease or anything on this, or that doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to just cut little lengths of the Plastigage and then sit it at each of these 5 bearing points. And what I'm probably going to do is, just because these holes for the cross drilling are there, I'm probably just going to rotate it ever so slightly to there, so I can just place it on the top of each of them. So I'm going to cut each little section and I'll show what it looks like. So here we have it. There's the bits of Plastigage, and I'm going to try and make sure it's lined, so along the line of the crank. There's another bit, there's another bit, there's another bit, and there's another bit. Right, so this is all from Honda, again, the service manual, but there is actually a torque spec you need to respect here. So if I just show you that. So the main bearings, what you do is you tighten it up to 25 Newton meters, and then for number 1 and number 5 you go to 73 Newton meters, and for number 2, 3 and 4, which is where the girdle is, you go to 64 Newton meters. And here you can see, so we have 1 on this side and 5 on this side. So this will be tighter to, these two will be 73 Newton meters, and these 6 in the middle, they will be 64 Newton meters. But it's important to say you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in terms of tightening sequence. And I'll show you that as well. And this is a bit of a crap drawing, but what I tried to do is just show you, as Honda does as well, the girdle. So it's got that kind of feature there with the 2 indents at the top, and that's what I'm trying to say, is these 2 indents there and there. So it just gives you an idea. Obviously remove the old bearings if they're still in there, which they are here, and just place them on, which I'll do that now. So this is the first bearing cap. Like I say, I've got the old bearing still in there, so what I can do is just press that out like that. Let's just come off, and then I'm going to use the same bolts in the same orientation as they originally were. It's got an arrow which is handy that points this way, and what I'm going to do is just place a new bearing cap in there after I've just cleaned off that grease off the back of there. So again, just the bearing goes in this tang and just pushes into place. Just make sure it's flush there. Okay. Now the important thing about using Plastigage is that you have to make sure you don't like wriggle the whole thing about or anything. You really just, you don't want to rotate the crank at all because it's going to smudge it. So you've got to be very careful. You just want to kind of place it very delicately in place, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do now. So like I say, arrow pointing this way. Hopefully you can see that, and then just lower it. In place. Okay, and I'm just going to very lightly by hand just tighten. It's got to make sure it goes over the cap, which it has done there. Right, and then so it's got these little dowels. So just make sure it's all just nicely going in. And then I'm going to do the same to the girdle. Grab the girdle now. So this is the girdle. Again, I'm just going to take the old bearing shells out. I'm not going to do it over the engine, but I'm just going to pop all the bearing shells out there. New bearings installed, bolts already in place. Same again, try not to disturb anything. Just want to kind of jostle it into place. And that looks like it's going down nicely evenly all over. And again, just get those threaded up. And going in nicely. Again, just do this all by hand. Avoids any horrible cross-threading situation, because you can feel it go tight if you're not properly in the thread. You get the picture anyway. Okay, so this is the 5th bearing cap. You see the arrow pointing towards me, or you, if we say you. Place that in as well. Just check that position is good. And just nestle it. And just going to make sure we're in a good place. We should just be able to it's not sitting quite square yet. There you go. There we go. And that's why you should always do it by hand. Because when you know cross-threading anything, you've got 14 here. I'm just going to go the whole way by hand so I can just check the threads are all nice. Then just to snug them down, I'm just going to use the ratchet. I'm going one, and this isn't even really putting any torque on them yet. This is just to get it so that they're down to the bottom. This is the 3rd one, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8, 9, 10. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now we're ready to grab our torque wrench. This is the torque wrench. Again, 14mm single hex for these. And we want to do it in 2 stages. The lowest this torque wrench goes is 28 Newton meters. My other torque wrench is broken at the moment, which is unfortunate, but really it's not a lot of torque you're talking about, and the difference between 28 and 25 minimal. So one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the torque wrench. At the bottom you have this knurled nut. You need to undo that so you can actually tighten this handle up. So we're on 28, which is the bottom setting. It's where this torque wrench wants to be when you put it away. You don't want it somewhere up here, because then you're going to be basically putting this thing right out of cal. So that's where it's set. And tighten the knurl bit down then. And you've got to be careful when doing this, because sometimes this thing backs off a bit. As you turn that handle, as you hold on to that handle, sometimes you're adjusting it a bit, so just make sure it doesn't move away from 64. Okay, and then we're going to start off by this. I'm actually going to stand on this, which probably isn't health and safety wise, but it just stops you moving all over the place. Okay, so the first one. Number 1, number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Okay, and then we want to go up to 73. Again, unlock that nut. 164 now. So 65, 66. So 66. We want to go up to 73. So we want 7 more. But you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gets me to 70, and then 1, 2, 3 on the money, and then just make sure you put it right and lock off the end there. Again, so we're on 73, and we're going for the 7th one. There we go. 8th. 9th. Just going to foot there. And the last one is number 10. The whole time I'm just checking this knurling doesn't move. There we go. So that is now fully torqued up. All you've got to do is take the torque off. So you can just use, you don't have to use a torque wrench to do that, but you also can do. And then you just take it off in reverse order. So you can then 10, I'll just do a quarter of a turn, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just keep on taking the torque off. It'll be pretty much out now. So that's it. No real torque on any of these now. Just keep on respecting that order basically. Okay, that's all the torque off there. It's good practice just to get your torque wrench and then just take off the torque once you've finished using it for the second. So I'm going to wind it right the way back to the minimum, and then I can just make sure all of these bolts are fully out. I'll take them off and show you. So it's loose now. Okay, now you've got to be very careful because you don't want to disturb the and you just try and joggle it. I need a gentle tap either side, the rubber hammer. Exciting. Now the thing about Plastigage is it isn't exactly an exact science, so especially when I'm doing it. But either way, you get this little card, and it has inches if that's what you're into, or millimeters. So I'm going to use millimeters just because that's what I'm going to do. So you can see here is the footprint of it, which is the most important bit. So you can see here that I am in and around 0.050 millimeters. I'm probably actually a little bit, what did I say? A little bit bigger than that. So I'm probably a little bit closer towards maybe 0.04 something high, 49, 48, who knows? But let's just call it 0.050. And then this one, I'm get my head away from this thing. So I'm somewhere between this and this. So somewhere between 0.038 and 0.050. Let's call it 0.040. And this one, I'm pretty much, let's have a look. I'm actually closer to the 0.050 than I am the 0.038, so I just called that 0.045. Called this one 0.040 and this one 0.050. But you know, it just gives you an understanding of where you are. It's not exactly that accurate. And then what we have here is these are all the clearances that I needed. So for 1, 2, 4 and 5, the upper limit in terms of if it was brand new would be 0.042. So you could probably say that I'm outside that, but the service limit is 0.06. So the good news is I'm within tolerance for the service limit, and you know, I'm not planning on doing another 100,000 miles on that engine anyway, so we're all good. Well, I'm going to say we're all good anyway. So I can use these bearings. I mean, if you were going to be ideal, you'd have, you know, different shells, upper and lower, and doing all that. This is the lockdown engine build. This is what we have. I'm going to get a non-mast scraper. I'll go and grab that, and I'm going to scrape all of these bits off the bearing surfaces now. Non-mast scraper here, and all I'm going to do is just very lightly just scrape off this Plastigage stuff. Just be patient with it and peel off this stuff. So that's all of the Plastigage taken off there. So the final bit of the process really is just take the crank back out. I've got to fit the thrust washers, which I'll show you, and then torque everything back up in the same sequence to the same specs as you did when you're checking the bearing tolerances. So crank out, don't drop it. And then get your thrust washers. So then you've got your thrust bearings. Just put a bit of this Torco MPZ. If you just get a little bit on the back here and there, and that's not to try and lubricate, but that's just purely so it doesn't slide off when you're fitting the crank. So that's just in there. Make sure you put lubricate the bearings. Nice slather on there and here and here and here and here. Okay, and you probably want to put some on the back here as well. Can't hurt. Okay. Just keep my hands up. And that really is a hell of a lot of lubrication, but okay. So then you're ready. Now the thrust bearings are in. So you place the crank in. There, into place. That's it. Okay. Whew. Right. So now you can just get some more of the sauce. Slather it. You can't go too wrong with too much, really. There's a lot going on here. And this. Okay. Again, get a clean finger and just move that over there. Okay. And the last one, the fifth one. It's got the arrow again pointing towards yourselves. So back, got some mineral oil. This stuff, you can't see the label because it's actually fallen off if I've got that on. Mineral oil, and all I'm doing is making sure, and this is the same as, it's just in a little jar here. I'm just going to basically dunk each one of these bolts in the oil, and in that way they'll be ready to get screwed down, and that's exactly the thing you need to have done when you're checking the bearing specs. I'm just checking they've all got lubrication, and the reason why I'm using mineral oil is because that's exactly the oil I'm going to be using when I'm breaking the engine in. I'll speak about that more when I do it, but what we're doing is just making sure the oil's in there for each of the bolts. So now, acid test, you just want to see if it moves freely, and of course it does. Okay, that's why you're putting all that lube in place. And now comes the point where I'm going to put the con rods and the bearings obviously in, but I want to check that the bearing tolerances are correct of the big end. So spin her over,